Hi everyone, welcome back to Geterbrewed. So today we're joined by Matt Curtis. So Matt is a beer writer, mainly based in GB, but do work all around the world. And he's kindly popped over to meet some of our brewers, come to some of our tap rooms, and you will have noticed that he's been working with us for a few months now, writing some really good content on the Geterbrewed blogs. Matt has quite a few sort of strings to his bow and things that you're involved in. So Pellicle magazine would be one of them. So want to tell the guys a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, the best way to describe what I do is I'm a beer writer, and Pellicle was born out of that. I don't run it by myself. I run it with a chap called Jonathan Hamilton, who's a fantastically talented brewer, also with a master's in brewing and distilling, which really helps. And he works at New Barnes Brewery up in Leith, near Edinburgh. But I got into beer writing as a hobby. About 2012, I started my blog, Total Ales, and I just dedicated a lot of time and passion to it, and things just kind of went from there. And I've been writing about beer full time since 2016. You know, it's been 6 years since I started writing about beer, and I hope to be doing it for a lot longer. And my first proper book, I've written a couple of books, but I wrote a book called Modern British Beer, and that came out August last year, so it's nearly a year old. And that was it was called Modern British Beer, and it was a look at how British beer culture had changed over the last 10, 20 years. But I did include a little bit of Northern Irish beer in there because I have been here a few times before to ABV Festival and to visit a few breweries, and it felt like a component. It felt like it needed to go in, and it would have done this scene an injustice if I hadn't talked about it. So it's been great to get over here again and post-pandemic to see how things are changing.
Good momentum of change coming over here. You will have seen from the last time you visited, a few tap rooms popping up. Obviously we're in one today, Bullhouse East. We visited Deer's Head out of office. Have you seen much of a change since, I suppose is it 4 or 5 years or longer since you were here?
It was 2018, I think, the last time I was here, September that year, for the last ever ABV Festival. Sadly missed. I came over to 2 of those and really enjoyed both of those experiences. But coming here to Belfast, and we're going to go up to Portrush later, visit Lacada. It feels like, it always has felt like the Northern Irish scene has been a little bit behind GB, but there's definitely a lot of excitement and enthusiasm. We've been to 4 or 5 breweries in the past 24 hours, and I mean, we're drinking this Bullhouse beer. It's fantastic. This tap room is, I could drop this in the centre of Manchester where I live, and it would just feel totally normal and part of the scene. So it feels like things are kicking on. The pandemic might have pegged you back a bit, as it did a lot of us, but it definitely feels like something's stirring here. It's quite exciting.
I've really enjoyed the content you've provided so far to the readers that tap into what we do in the blog. So part of what we do with the videos is to give people a behind the scenes look at breweries, how to and helpful things for home brewers. Try not to keep it salesy. We want people to be interested in the content that we're putting on. We do run a shop, but we run that. We love what we do. We have a great team, and it's nice to work with good people like yourself. So I guess all this is a little bit of an introduction, but so far we've got a nice piece that you put out in Trappist Brewing on Chimay. You're working on some nice stuff to do with water profiles in the near future.
Indeed.
Beer trends was popped out there recently. What do you think it's coming? And we had discussed a few upcoming topics, but tell the guys a little bit about what they can expect over the next few months.
Well, I think the first thing I'm going to do when I get home is work out how I can write about this trip. I think it'd be good to write a little evaluation of what I've experienced and what I have seen in the Northern Irish scene, and I think people would be interested in reading that. But what else have we got? So I'm writing about water at the moment, which is, I've read a lot about brewing water and brewing chemistry, and I'm trying to figure out a way to make it interesting because it's water. So I think I'm going to relate to the first time I ever drank a beer and thought about the water, and I think, as I talked about with the Trappist beer pieces and my visit to Chimay, it really gave me perspective beer's all about perspective for me, and everyone views it differently. But when I visited Pilsen and Pilsner Urquell about 6 or 7 years ago, they talked so much about how they had the softest brewing water in the world and how that influenced their beer. And I will probably use that because that was the first time I ever drank a beer and went, the water has such an influence on how this tastes. And then, you know, I like a pint of cask bitter, as people who follow me will know. And if you drink, say, a black sheep bitter from up in Yorkshire, you can almost taste the mineral, flinty character of the water there. But then, of course, we're drinking a New England IPA style beer right now, and this is all about using treatment to strip all of that out of it, and then basically have a blank canvas. And I'll talk about what you can use to and how that process works to essentially give brewers the tool to make their own water profiles, and why that water is so often not thought about. We've got a special guest here as well in the background. Water is so often not thought about as a key ingredient, but I think there'll be a lot more investigation into ingredients. I'd love to talk about what's happening in malt. I'm really excited about what's happening in malt. I'd love to talk about how consumers' habits are changing. I think we might be coming to a point where the hype days of limited releases are on the wane, and people want that reliable beer, and how core range beers are going to become crucial to breweries if they want to build a following, and how they build a legacy, and just really go from there. I mean, there's so much happening in beer. Some of it's difficult, some of it's challenging. The cost of living crisis is hitting beer as much as it's hitting everyone, really. So it'd be good to dig into that. But it's about beer, so it'd be good to dig into the positive side. I try to be an optimist despite things being difficult, so it'd be nice to look at some topics that can put a smile on our faces. It's beer after all, right?
You know, for anyone that doesn't know yourself, you're very passionate about the beer industry, but equally you don't just focus on beer. You look at natural wines, cider producers, sort of artisan food producers, cheese producers, sourdough bakers, you know, all those type of things. So if you guys are watching this and you're interested in those things, I would suggest check out Pellicle. We'll put a link in the comments below. You are supporting a wide range of beer writers. You're also supporting independent businesses that need showcased, in my opinion anyway, and I want to help champion that as well, because it's important to us. You're over here working with us to try and put a shine on ingredient supply, but also on our local producers, so we can let you see behind the scenes and talk a little bit to industry experts like yourself. Your profession is beer writing, full-time job. A lot of people dabble at it. What is that like?
Do you know what? I've been touring my book at the moment, and that is the question that's come up the most on the tour. People say to me, that sounds like the best job in the world. And do you know what? It's a pretty good job. I get to travel around trying lots of beer, visiting lots of pubs and breweries, and that's really exciting. But it's a job. People don't see me on a Monday doing my spreadsheets, doing my profit and loss sheets, chasing invoices. You know, I run a little business, and Pellicle is, in fact, a separate business to that. So I spend, you know, we pay all our contributors at Pellicle. So every Monday I do our payment runs, so people who've turned in invoices that week don't have to wait a month for to be paid. Because I'm a freelancer, I want to treat freelancers how I want to be treated. So there's a lot of admin, and then there's the actual creative process, the writing. I think the Taika Waititi, the director, who's done the new Thor movie, he put out a meme the other week about how writing can sometimes be opening the document, staring at it for 8 hours, not coming up with anything, and then closing it. But that's still writing, and that can be true. Sometimes the words flow and it's easy, and sometimes it's frustrating. It's a creative process. You have to come up with these ideas, and I'm also have to make a living out of it. So often I finish a piece of work and I have to go, right, there's no rest. And go, yes, that feels great. It's like, right, I have to move on to the next piece of work. I think the advantage of having done what I do, though, for over 6 years now, is I'm much better at taking breaks. I was so excited when I first got it. I worked all hours sent, and I burn myself out, as a lot of freelancers do. So I'm a lot more settled, but you know, it's still work. And I do a bit of photography to supplement my writing. I run my podcast, and those edit sessions can be several hours long as well. So yeah, you know, there are weeks when I can do 60 plus hours a week at the desk. And there are weeks when I jump on a plane to Belfast and come and drink some beers, so it all balances out.
And the challenges of becoming a beer writer, if someone's watching this and they're thinking, I'm very passionate about beer, they've maybe studied English or journalism at university and they're going to want to get into this, how do you start?
I get asked this a lot, and especially since we launched Pellicle, because we pay people, and people who maybe haven't been published before will come to me with a pitch and say, I'd love to write for Pellicle, you don't have to pay me, and our policy at Pellicle is everyone gets paid for their work, because that's how I think it should work. Before I was paid for beer writing, I must have put out well over 150 blog posts on my old blog, Total Ales. I think I'm a believer in doing the work, and although it's difficult in this day and age to go, you know, put yourself out there for free, if you enjoy the pursuit of beer or whatever you're passionate about, but you know, we're talking about beer writing, is start that blog, start that newsletter, start that podcast. Put yourself out there. You have to be prepared for people to not agree with what you're saying, but maybe use that as like, well, if you don't agree with this, how does that influence how I feel about it? I think you know, the internet is wonderful. In fact, there's so many ways to express yourself, from vlogging to podcasts to writing, through you can make your own website. The Substack newsletter platform is booming at the moment. You know, it was a good 4 years before I was having a semi-regular income from writing. And it was it took me a couple of years after that before I was able to turn it into a full-time career. I never planned to do that, but when I saw the opportunity, why wouldn't you want to be a full-time beer writer? So, number one advice is just to back yourself and put yourself out there.
And you can be selective now who you work with. Like, we appreciate you work with us, but I would say you get a lot.
I'm appreciative, but yeah,
you get a lot of requests from people that you maybe look at and go, is this something I want to do? So you're in a position now where you can pick and choose what you want to write about.
More or less, I would say there's more than I can't. I'm one person, and you know, some breweries are like, oh, you've never written about us before, and I'm like, you know what, I'd love to, but it's work, and I want to do a good job, and that involves investing time into that job. The advantage of launching Pellicle a few years ago, it means that I can now hire people to write stuff that I never would have the time to do. And working, you know, having written about beer for a few years, I'm quite a hands-on editor. You know, I will write briefs, I will send marked up documents back saying, change this, interview this person. I'm interested in, you know, I had the opportunity to work with some great editors over the years, and I'm a big believer in paying it forward, and I think that's the best thing about having the magazine, is the chance to give, you know, people who have been putting the work in, giving them the opportunity to get paid for beer writing. It's a good feeling.
You've mentioned the magazine, so how do people get involved in the magazine?
So Pellicle is funded via Patreon. Geterbrewed are what we call a pro tier Patreon supporter, and that money goes directly towards paying the writers, illustrators and photographers we work with to produce our weekly content. If you go to patreon.com/pelliclemag, you can give us a donation from as little as £1 a month. From £4 a month, you get access to our monthly Patreon, almost monthly, I write it when I have time, Patreon newsletter, and then from a bit more money, we'll send you some stickers and a badge and just a few freebies, give you a discount on the merch that we're working on. There's some new stuff coming soon. But it's all online, and you can go to pelliclemag.com to read the magazine, search for the Pellicle podcast to find our podcast on all the big streaming platforms. One day, if we can make it add up, we'd love to do a print magazine. That's the grand plan. But for now, we're very much invested in the website, and we've got a big audience, and we'd just like to get it bigger and get more people reading about beer in a meaningful way.
We had one of our brewers locally, 18, featured recently in one of the articles, so you can check that out from Heaney Brewery. And I'm sure there's lots of other names there that you're working with on a regular basis, which you guys would find interesting. So please do check it out.
And I just want to add, it's really important to say that my co-founder is a Portrush boy. He's from Northern Ireland, so he's always thinking about this part of the world, and he's been texting me. He's been seeing my Instagram stories, and he's really excited. Just like he's seeing pictures of breweries he didn't know existed, and I think he's happy to see that.
It'd be nice to get him over for the next visit.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, cool. So look, nice location today, Bullhouse East. Make sure you check it out, brand new tap room. We're really appreciative of Matt coming over. There's going to be lots more content on the Geterbrewed blog. You're featuring pretty much a blog post a month at the minute, a nice detailed blog post on really interesting topics. Do check out Pellicle magazine. Do continue to support your local brewers. And Matt, thanks again, and cheers.
Cheers, Johnny.